Welcome to another episode of Top Team. Today we are going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of co-coaching. So is it really worthwhile getting two team coaches in at the same time? Let's take a look at it. Ulrike, hi. It has been a while since we have seen each other. I really look forward to discussing this with you today. Incidentally, you are my co-coach.
Yes, I am. So very well qualified to talk about it with you.
Yes, let's. The way that I wanted to propose we do this, I came across a advantages, disadvantages list about coaching as a pair or co-coaching in the book Systemic Team Coaching by John Leary Joyce and Hilary Lyons from pages 72 and 73. If it's okay with you, I think we should just take each point separately and maybe see if that's something that resonates with us. What do you think of that?
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Okay.
Let's go through it.
So first, let's take a look at the advantages of working with a co-coach. Okay. First step, you have another pair of eyes and ears to tend to what is happening. That's a biggie, right?
Oh, yes, it is. Because this is actually what we try to do with the team, right? To get this kind of 360-degree. And I think if you work as a coach, it's just me looking at a certain situation. If I'm good and I have this view, but I'm still lacking what's behind my back. And yeah. I think a second pair is just fabulous to have a different perspective. What do you think about it?
Well, I think that there's just so much information. When you observe an interaction with a team in a team, there's so much information about the team dynamic, what's really happening. And when you're actually the one coaching at that moment, the one really asking questions and so on, you're really focused on that. And you might miss a wealth of this information in the details. I mean, just imagine you do a virtual team coaching and you have 10 or 16 people on screen, and you know there's so much happening just to keep an eye out on it. Also, sometimes you're really involved in thinking when you're the active coach at that moment, and it always is nice to be the fly on the wall and to have the little bit more open look into the room, even if you're in person with a team, to really gauge the energy, to really take a very close look at body posture and the unsaid things and the glances that people do and so on. It's so much information. So two people, definitely different, but also we hear different things. I think we might hear the same words being spoken, but nevertheless, the way that we see things is differently. And I think that actually comes into the next step here, which would be, this gives you another perspective, interpretation, hypothesis on the data collected. Right?
Yes, definitely. And I like the point you just mentioned, which is we hear the same sentence, but it triggers something else. So I have different ideas than you about certain stuff. And what I always like to do before we go in such a session is that we discuss beforehand who is concentrating on what. So one of us is doing the conversation for a while, and at the same time, the other one is watching the room, what's in the room, what's happening there regarding body language. Is there somebody who wants to talk something and then goes back because obviously it's not time to talk, and then I could invite this person to talk and perhaps you didn't even see it, or vice versa. So I like this additional perspective. Also to have the chance within the coaching really to make those people aware that we are two different people, have different views, and actually it's not bad, it's actually very good to have this, and to invite the coachees also to have, well, hey, you see, we have two perspectives, what about you? You might be the third. And we have as many perspectives in the room as there are people. So, and they all have their own vision and values. So I think it gives a better picture of the whole situation. It's and sometimes if you have conflict situations, it seems to be frozen somehow. And because they realize, oh, there are different perspectives and actually it's good, I think the openness to the coaching process is much easier than just being in front of a team alone.
Yes, yes.
As a solo coach, yeah.
And you know, we're all people, so sometimes there might even be that some members of the team might feel more open to talk about certain things with one coach and then maybe the other. Or there's just a different energy that we bring in the room, but a lot does this role modeling of you know what it takes, this forth and back, and this non-judgmental openness and so on. When you already role model that as the team of coaches in front of them, they see a team that hopefully works. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
we obviously strive for it to work. And actually that's exactly the next thing that Joyce and Lyons write here. You model good teamwork by sharing the leadership role and collaborating to make the best use of your diversity as the coaching team. Exactly what you said. Yeah.
Yeah. So actually it's okay to be different, and it's not even only okay, it's an enhancement to the process. And if they see that even if we might disagree about certain stuff, it really doesn't matter, because I'm not judging or blaming you for not being in my opinion. I'd rather take it as a chance. Oh, actually it makes my picture even bigger. So otherwise I would have missed this opportunity to this additional perspective. And if they learn that actually it doesn't hurt to have this openness between each other and still have my own stand in front of everybody, and I don't lose my competence or anything, and on the contrary, I think it's also my role to say, actually, I'm not a perfect person. I'm just a person with different views, different experiences, and this is what I offer to you, and what is your offer. Yeah. And to make this open as a model, because if you do it only in theory, people might not understand it. But if they see this interaction between us with them, I think this is just an invitation, and some people find this way easier to open up in this process.
Yeah, I really do feel very strongly personally about that cognitive diversity is something that needs to be celebrated, because you know, if everybody thinks the same or thinks that they have to think the same and align themselves, I think that that leaves too much possibility for blind spots. You know, just whole areas that you can't see, but also diminished innovation and creativity, right? It's like, if you're different, it's great, right? It's going to be a challenge to figure out ways that we can communicate and collaborate. Maybe we have to figure out how to do that, but it is so great that you're different from me. Yeah. Excellent. So next advantage of being co-coach, being different personalities, you are less likely to be emotionally caught by the same hook put out by the team. And that really is true, right? I mean, we all have our triggers, you know.
Oh, yes.
Granted, coaches are kind of maybe more self-reflected and so on, but we all have our triggers. We all do. We all nevertheless see the world through our own internal models and so on. And the beauty is that your model is different from mine, and your experience is different from mine. So if something really comes up, one of us can maybe save the day. What do you think?
Definitely. I just remember one of my people in front of me who really pressed my buttons quite quickly, and I didn't even realize that they were pressed. And I was up the ceiling out of a sudden watching the whole situation and thinking, oh my goodness, I know I'm part of the system anyway, but I wasn't in charge of my feelings anymore. And just because somebody said a certain sentence in a certain way, and watching you being really astonished about this, what the heck is she doing, keeps me quiet again, because watching you seeing, oh, she's not engaged at all, no emotion, no nothing, so why am I up the ceiling and she's still sitting on her chair very quietly, relaxed. Even if you realize that I'm not myself for whatever reason, it's much easier to be with my emotion and not cover it, because I have you at my side and saying, well, actually, I think she might take over right now, because you can see I'm so engaged for some reason. I need some time. I need to watch from a different perspective. And this again makes people realize actually it's okay to flip out and see, oh, actually it's me, and you never know what kind of trigger I have in my past, and I don't know what will be said in a coaching session which will resonate positively or negatively or neutrally with me. So it's a chance to get rid of those emotions which are not helpful to the process. But if you are alone, those emotions are either bad, or you try to cover, which is also not good, because they're there, still sitting there. And it makes me more human to everyone and still under control, because I admit emotions are there, for heaven's sake. So be it. It's just the way how to deal with it.
Yeah.
So this is what I really like to be in a co-coach situation, because it makes me absolutely feeling even more safe. Whatever happens doesn't matter really, because there's somebody else watching and hopefully not having the same trigger as me. Yeah, so
yeah, because
yeah.
we have such deep rapport. We know each other so well that we become kind of attuned. I will know, for instance, if your buttons get pushed. You will know if my energy starts to get frazzled, and we can either continue to observe, see if the situation resolves, or gently come in, or at least offer the support that is required at that moment, right? And it allows then the person whose buttons got pushed to just go and recollect themselves a little bit. Sometimes we actually bring it out in the open and say what really happened here, and you and I are going to have a discussion about that the team can just observe, because very, very, very often, and we will talk about it at a later point, if some buttons get pushed, it's likely that it is a button pushable issue with the team as well.
There might be somebody else being felt pushed. So yeah, that's right.
Right. Fabulous.
And I like the idea of putting it into the open to the team and just make them aware it doesn't really matter. It does matter to the process, and it's okay to have those buttons, and to be open with you shows them, if somebody is open, it could be actually good for the process to explain, why am I reacting in such a strange way? Nobody can actually know why am I like that, because I changed in a second. Everything is done. And I think if there's conflict in the team, they're sometimes hiding conflict questions, and if they would have been put into the open, this conflict perhaps would never be that escalated.
Yeah, it's doing this, bringing it out into the open, is psychological safety in practice. It
Yeah,
is that's how it works, right? It's like, yes, you know, your stuff went kind of haywire, but it's okay. What really happened here, and what do you need to get over it? What does this teach us about the system and the dynamic of you know, the relationships and so on? Very, very great. Good, good, good. Ready for the next step? They write, it's good to have a colleague to bounce reactions off in a debrief session. Yes, we're going to talk about what happened, and I might have a completely different interpretation and take on what happened than you. And having these discussions is absolutely fabulous, because otherwise, if you're alone, if you're not working as a co-coach, you just sit there with your own thoughts and interpretations and so on. And having this dialogue about it, and brainstorming and just, you know, forth and back is really, really, really useful.
it is. Yeah, it again, it's a different perspective, and not me taking my table and clinging to it, but really to say, okay, actually, it's what I see is right, but what she says is also right. So it gives me the possibility to distance myself from the thing, going to the meta again and see, oh, actually, what's happening? What was my part? What is the other one's part, and what does it make, what is it important for regarding the process? Is it helpful? Is it not helpful? Do we need it? And if we don't need it, what can we do about it? So because if you don't talk about it, it doesn't go away, it still sticks forever. And the unnice thing is you never know when it will come back. And normally such things come back if you don't think about them, and out of a sudden it's there again. And normally it never fits to the situation. So I prefer rather to debrief it quickly and deeply, in order really to be aware that things are like that are sitting there, and just to also develop a different way of dealing with it.
Yeah, because the team coaching is so complex and so messy in itself that no matter how experienced you are, there's always going to be uncertainty regarding certain interpretations. Did I really understand that correctly? Is that really, you know, what really happened here? Did I miss some important points, and so on? So having just another view of the thing, you know, can sometimes give a little bit more certainty and a little bit more peace of mind, as well as you deal with the aftermath of it as a coach, right? Yeah.
I mean, we were talking, I think, about also questions, or this might be also something for a future session, but you and I, we are never sure whether we put enough questions into the process. And sometimes if you stop asking questions yourself, then you tend to take things for granted. And that's the moment where things are starting their own life in your brain. And then I miss my capability of asking the question, is this really happening? And what if not? No, I'm just clinging to there and I follow my path. And sometimes this path doesn't even exist. It's just in my head. So this is good if you have a second person beside you saying, well, actually, I can't even see your path. Where are you going? So that's nice if somebody tells you, oh, actually, I'm completely off the road. There isn't even a road. So yeah,
because
come back.
it's not always this coming together. Sometimes it's also just challenging one another, and yeah, it's just a really great professional exchange and discussion, you know, to the benefit of a client. Very good.
To the process. Yep.
Yes, yes, it's the process. Next step here is planning and structuring the engagement with another person adds depth and richness. And we all know that planning and structuring, you do your best thing, and then you need to kind of adapt depending on how the team reacts, how the organization is able to follow it or not. But nevertheless, I think, you know, combining experiences, combining point of views, combining our coaching creativity is really a strong point.
Yeah, it gives much more opportunities of chances. I have a certain way of seeing stuff and I share it with you, and that triggers your own brain with even more and sometimes completely different ideas and the mixture it is. And I think what you just said is completely right. The planning is essential, but you need to be open what happens in reality, because we both might have a wonderful plan, what could be done, what kind of interventions we might use in order to get the process keep going. And then out of a sudden you enter the room and everything has changed because the circumstances have changed, the people have changed, there's daily business coming in. And then if you stick to your plan, oops. But if you have this discussion before, upfront, then you have this flexibility of minds, and perhaps we were stuck with your ideas, that's the way to go. And out of a sudden, the mixture of both of us is the best way to go. And then you're actually prepared. If you don't prepare, then you might be surprised. And then that's the point where you will lose grip. You won't have the situation, the feeling. I don't need grip all the time, but the feeling for the situation, which makes my brain really clear and free to think and come up with crazy ideas on the run. And therefore, I love this exchange with you about certain stuff, because my freedom of brain is even larger. So this is always this wonderful sentence where both of us together are more than just us alone.
Some of the parts, yeah. And you know, that also, I think, makes me every day again grateful to have actually found in you a co-coach with whom this is possible. Because, you know, this is maybe one of the difficulties that comes in the downsides later in the list, but it's not every coach can click with every other coach the same way. And, you know, we found each other relatively quickly. There has seemed to be an affinity from the start. And so I'm definitely grateful for that. Yeah.
And actually, so we are different, but we are still the same. So we are at least on the same page.
Yeah. No, because this where I notice it always is this bouncing forth and back. Like you say something, I can take it to the next step. You can take it from there and even grow it. And so this forth and back is this shared creativity, this true collaboration also, but this deep sense of psychological safety. It's something to be cherished. Good.
It's to the next point.
Yeah, exactly. Because the next point is under parenthesis, usually, but it's more fun and less stressful. More fun. It's definitely more fun. Definitely more fun. We have usually a very good deal of fun and friendly banter as well. And less stressful, yeah, because I think knowing that the support is there, knowing that there's somebody there who would catch you if you fall, is definitely reducing the stress levels. Yeah.
It is. Yep.
And then the last point here on the advantages is you can make productive use of the phenomenon of parallel process. And I'm actually going to maybe defer the audience to the next video that we're going to talk very specifically about parallel process. So please, let's all check that out. In any case, that brings up a good point. If you like the content that you see here, please subscribe and click that notification bell. If you have questions or ideas for future episodes, let us know. Go to topcoachluxembourg.lu/YouTube and drop us a line. Good. Let's continue with the downsides of co-coaching. Let's see what these authors had to say. first step, it's more expensive for the client with 2 coaches to be remunerated or paid, in other words, right? You have 2 coaches, you have to pay. So what's your experience with this, or how would you talk to this potential objection, Ulrike?
I'm just asking whether it's true, actually, whether it's really more expensive. In the long run, I would say it saves even money because it's better for the process. There is more experiences in the room. And even if from the first sight, it might be double as expensive as just one, I think in the long run, there's more to it. Because, for example, if we work with a team and, well, it's not a we, it's just me, and I'm not resonating with everyone in the same room as good as it could. So if we are 2 of us, there's a chance whoever doesn't want to work with me to full extent would be better off with you. And if we come into the room from the first minute and know everything from the scratch, it's much more easy because I'm at the moment with a customer alone, and I would heavily invest in the idea of getting somebody else in. But this somebody else would be completely new. It takes a while until she or he knows everything, blah, blah, blah. This takes time, this takes money, and more important, beside money, it takes my nerves, and not mine, the nerves of the customer too, because they have to start from the scratch with a new person. And if you have more than 5 or 8 people, I would say a co-coach is just a need. Otherwise, it's quite natural that I can't guarantee I would be the best person for the process for everyone. Because team coaching is not only working with a team, but sometimes, or most of the time, according to my experience, to work with the individuals. And I'm not perfect for everyone. This is just for sure. And I just would like to give my customers the experiences of having the experience with you, for example. Yeah. So what do you think? Is it really expensive? It is, but
I mean, the person signing on the dotted line is going to see a priori a larger amount. However, I really do think that there's an indisputable increase in efficiency, because we have talked about some advantages before, and just because we are the team coaches, we looked at it from our perspective. But what are the benefits to the clients when there's more eyes and ears knowing what's going on in the room, getting more perspective interpretation out there, being able to model good teamwork? The team profits from that. Right, we are able to bounce reaction off of in a debrief session. You and I will have a more productive debrief session, a more productive preparation session. All of that is going to be reflected in the actual engagement with the team during those hours that we spent with them. And the parallel process cannot be disqualified as well. So all of those things add a richness and an efficiency to the team coaching process. What you said, of course, that we will just resonate differently and have different rapport with different people, it is absolutely true. Also, sometimes it makes sense that one of us deals mostly with the team lead, and the other one might deal more with the members of the team when it comes to individual coaching, just to keep a little bit of this separation going and this transparency of engagement. So yeah, I find it's always a question that comes up at the beginning of an engagement, like, yeah, why should I pay 2? But the benefits are very, very large. The benefits are very, very large. So it's just great that we
to interrupt. If you do team coach as a consultancy, nobody really answers the question whether some big consultancy comes in, whether they engage 1 or 2, a senior or not so senior level. it's quite natural to do that. And it's quite clear that it's not only one coming to the company working with several issues, it's always more. And the question, if you deal with psychological safety, with human beings, with brains, with different experiences in life, why do you think you can do that with just one person for 20 people in the long run, and really with something as a result, so they can see a change? I mean, I can work with 100 people. The question is, do they really change their way of thinking? And do I really have the chance later on to drop off and say, well, actually, you do a fantastic job your own because you found your fantastic way, not because I say it, because you just go ahead without me, which is good because that was a goal.
Yeah.
And I think it's I don't think it's a downside. Actually, it's a downside argument, but I think actually it's an advantage.
The co-coach? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's also two people have just plain more impact than one. It's as simple as that, right?
Yeah.
And it comes back to this authority, presence, and impact. Both of them are, all three of them are enhanced if you come in as a team of co-coaches. Definitely. Another downside that's listed here is it's more time consuming. You need to set aside more time to plan and debrief. Well, I actually don't think so personally. I think that when I plan and debrief with somebody else, the juices are flowing much more freely. The creativity is much higher. The chances of really getting into flow for me personally are much higher than when I just sit with me and myself. How is it for you, Ulrike?
I would subscribe, and there's nothing to add.
Okay, perfect. Next step would be the need to discuss decisions and interventions will likely surface differences and conflicts that need to be resolved. And then they already mentioned here in parentheses the important part. This can prove to be very productive if worked through effectively. Yeah, sometimes there's going to be, a difference of opinion and a stumbling block and stuff like that. Yeah, that can happen. Hasn't happened for us really quite yet. And if they surface, it's okay. We're not going to have a big conflict about it. We're going to discuss it and deal with it. What do you think? Do I maybe misunderstand what they try to say here?
No, I don't think so. I think what's in brackets, that's the key. And for me, it's I love conflict if it's productive. And productive means we have differences. And if we really would fight for something, then we need to be able to say, well, why actually are we fighting for this so heavily? Why is it so important, interesting? And if it's this for us, is it for the customer the same? And is this why certain things are not working? So I think if you're really mature and developed, then you should be able to see it and to make yourself distance at it. And if you can't do that, then obviously we need to be professional enough to go and use supervision and say, well, actually, this is clashing. We can't deal with it. So how does it look like from an outside perspective? And this brings you again to the process. So I think this is a key element of coaching, to be able to resonate with such situations. You don't need to love conflicts, but I really like the opportunities and the stuff sitting behind the why, what exactly is happening here. And this makes me really curious. And most of the conflicts can be solved by really going into deep depths, seeing what exactly is behind that. So actually, again, for me, this kind of disadvantage is a key element. And for me, it's an advantage, to be honest. Otherwise, it's not working.
For me too, we're sitting here like, why do they think that conflict is like inherently a disadvantage? We're both sitting here not understanding it, because I think for us truly it is the case that if conflict comes up, or let's say a disagreement comes up, then it's just something to be discussed and resolved, because it brought something up that needed to come to the surface at that moment, and it's going to make the experience richer. Like you said, you don't need to love conflict, but it is an opportunity opportunity to learn more, to grow, and to come closer together in the end. So that, dear audience, is exactly the point. Last point, or second to last point, I think, is you might not get on well enough with your co-coach, so the fun element might be missing. This can lead to a different type of stress, and you might need supervision. Yeah, sure. But if you're not with the right co-coach, I could imagine if you're forced together with a person with whom you are not able to build that level of rapport, I can imagine that it could be stressful. But that's why you go out and try to really find the right people to work with. And let's hope that as co-coaches, that is always the ideal thing, that you just find each other. And
I think
so
your stomach, your guts your feeling needs to be good, because you talked about the messiness in teams and in team coaching. And at least, even if the two of us are messy with each other, we need to have a basis of trust, where it doesn't matter really what kind of messiness comes. It's just a thing how to deal with it. How are we going to deal with that? And I need to have this trust that in front of the people, that we have so much professionalism that whatever we do in front of them is good for them. Even if we fight, it needs to be good for them to watch and to see. It needs to be professional. And if it's not, then we need to be able to put that also in front of you. What do you think might just have happened in front of you? Yeah. So again, to professionalize the whole thing, even if we have a different fight once the thing is over, but to have the safety of trusting, I think is essential. If I would have the feeling that you are not the right person to deal with a certain customer of mine together as a co-coach, we should talk about it upfront. And if we can't solve that for whatever reason, it's not fitting, then we shouldn't do it. Because we don't know what kind of mess is coming. And if we don't have our own mess in place, how are we then capable to do that in front of the messiness of the customer?
Nevertheless, I think that professionalism and psychological safety and the celebration of cognitive diversity is something that can be overcome, because we try to foster that in the teams that we're working with, that they are being able to come together, and they might not have rapport with everybody in the team either. But I think that with a good amount of professionalism, a certain confidence to show yourself vulnerable, to trust the process, and so on, it's still possible to a certain degree. I just find that, co-coaching, it's because you're dealing with such a huge task as a team coach and a messiness that's inherent already in the team. I think being able to work with a co-coach with whom you have this deep rapport and this where you just click is really nice, because otherwise I'm not saying it can't be done, but like they say here in the list, it could add an element of stress. Yeah. Shall we go to the last point, or did you want to add something?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, last point here. Unless you contract very carefully with your co-coach, you can get in each other's way in the coaching and fail to deliver your collective value. Unless you contract very carefully. Contracting here also meaning coming to an agreement. It's not this piece of paper necessarily with a lot of legalese on it. That's not what we mean here. It's like unless you kind of come to an agreement of what it is you want to achieve, how you want to go about it, what you're going to focus on so on, you can get in each other's way during the coaching. Do you agree with that?
I certainly do agree with that. And I would add that it's absolutely essential to have this contract session every time before we go to a new engagement, and even if it's an ongoing thing, because contracting for me also means to say, well, what happened last time? What was fine? What was not so fine? And how can we avoid stuff like that? And how can we both develop in a different way so that the stress is less?
Yeah.
You never know what happens, so you can't contract to full extent, but you can contract about how to deal with messiness, for example, who's doing what, and how can I, for example, react if I have the feeling that you are completely off-road in a process? How can I gently come into the process to support you getting out of it, and vice versa? So this is the way. I think the more we work together, the better we know each other, and then we have a certain feeling of what is good for the other one, what does he or she needs as a co-coach, and what I should avoid because it would disturb her or you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, there's certain things in it. The first one is, of course, process tools. What are we going to work with? How are we going to facilitate it? All that kind of stuff. That of course is the work part. Very important then is also what you just mentioned. It's this choreography, if you allow me to use that word, right? How do we trade off? How do we tap off? Who's going to lead what, and how are we going to just change places and support each other or leave the room or whatever. And the third one, very important, is setting intent. And that for me is very important. It's like what is our intent? And let's also collect our positive collective energy and thought, get ourselves into the right mood before we enter this engagement today or in 10 minutes or whatever. And this setting this intent, I think, is very important, especially when you do it very consciously and you put it in words. Because I notice when I'm by myself, sometimes that intent is there, this positive intent is there, this energy is there, but I don't necessarily go and put language around it, and bringing it to that proverbial surface through the use of language can be quite powerful. This is what I want to achieve today, and this is what I want to focus on today. Excellent. Yeah. Wow. I mean, so would you agree that the advantages by far outweigh the disadvantages when it comes to co-coaching?
I would, and for everyone, for the customer, for each of the system parts, customer, the stakeholders, for the coaches, for the whole 360-degree world we are busy with. So I would recommend doing it if possible. It would be, it's a very good experience for everyone, I think.
Yeah. So will you in the future still consider team coaching engagements by yourself?
I was thinking about refusing taking on board new engagements without a co-coach if it's a team. So sometimes I start with individual coaching and it develops to team coaching. And then I couldn't just stop it. I thought so far. I'm just thinking whether I should really make that sure in my brain to say, well, whenever it comes to co-coaching, to team coaching, telling the person I've been doing one-to-one coaching with, actually, yes, that was fine because it was just the two of us. But if we engage now with the whole team, I always do it with another one. That's a different job engagement. So I'm thinking about this to be more clear to myself, and because I'm to myself quite clear, I'm also clear to the customer. And because I'm clear that he might feel, oh, actually, she's right.
Yeah, because
and then we don't have this discussion about being expensive, being blah. It's just the way it is. And
the way
they trust me because I do work with them already. So how would you do about this in the future?
I would not do a team by myself. I mean, maybe if it's a really, like, let's say, it might be a three person team, you
Yeah.
know, family business or something. I could imagine it, because it's, you know, it might be overkill to go in there as two
Yeah.
people. But beyond that, you know, team coaching for me is co-coaching. That's the way it rolls. It's the way it is, and the benefits are so huge, like you said, not just for me and my co-coach, but especially for the client, and you know, the whole ecosystem he functions in. That yeah, it's just the way it is, and that's, yeah, that's just clear. Yeah, good. Hey, we had a wonderful session. Unless you have something you want to add, maybe we should wrap this co-coaching session up.
Yeah, that's I think we did it
Awesome.
all along.
Everybody, thank you so much for watching. It was a pleasure. Watch out for the next video about parallel process. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye.